15 years ago, Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, found herself ensnared in a carefully orchestrated undercover operation. She was recorded attempting to broker access to her former husband, Prince Andrew, in exchange for a substantial sum of £500,000. The individual involved was, in fact, an imposter posing as a wealthy businessman. Despite this humiliating scandal, Ferguson demonstrated remarkable resilience. She appeared on a high-profile television interview with Oprah Winfrey, where she positioned herself as a wronged party, eliciting sympathy from the public. Before long, she had rehabilitated her image sufficiently to reclaim a prominent seat in the royal box at Wimbledon and other prestigious events. This pattern of escapades and comebacks has earned her the moniker of the royal family's very own Houdini, suggesting that we might yet witness another resurgence in her public life. However, the current circumstances appear to have placed insurmountable pressure on her long-standing arrangement with Prince Andrew. Their relationship, which has endured in a peculiar form despite their divorce, seems to have fractured irreparably amid the ongoing controversies. Recent reports from the Times indicate that Prince Andrew, now referred to in some circles as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, has at last consented to vacate his grace and favour home, the expansive Royal Lodge in Windsor. This decision came after it became evident that his most steadfast supporter, his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson, was withdrawing her allegiance. There are whispers of a potential six-figure compensation package for Andrew to relinquish the lease on this grand property, though this amount could be significantly diminished due to an enormous outstanding bill for necessary repairs and maintenance. Joining the discussion is Andrew Loney, the acclaimed author of entitled The Rise and Fall of the House of York, a book that delves deeply into the intricacies of this branch of the royal family. Good morning, Andrew. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Let's begin by examining the dynamic between Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, a partnership that has persisted in an unconventional manner for decades. They have shared the same residence for much of that time, even after their divorce, often describing themselves as the happiest separated couple in existence. Yet, this label has always seemed somewhat inaccurate. Ferguson has evidently derived benefits from her association with Andrew's royal status, but with his princely title effectively sidelined and his departure from Royal Lodge imminent, she appears to have moved forward independently. As you've noted, she is actively working to reinvent her personal brand. Her history of overcoming adversity is well documented. That sting operation from 15 years prior serves as a prime example. Caught on camera offering access to Andrew for £500,000 to a fictitious tycoon, she faced widespread condemnation. Nevertheless, she orchestrated a comeback, leveraging the Oprah platform to portray herself as a victim of circumstance. Soon enough, she was once again gracing elite social gatherings, including the hallowed grounds of Wimbledon. Given this track record, it's plausible that this escape artist of the monarchy could stage yet another return to prominence. That said, the bond between Andrew and Ferguson has undeniably crumbled under the weight of recent events. I believe we will also observe strains emerging in Andrew's relationships with his daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie. They, too, may seek to create distance from their father and the associated scandals. In fact, there is speculation that they might even choose to relinquish their royal titles voluntarily. This raises an intriguing question. Why would they consider such a step, especially when those titles have proven advantageous for their professional endeavors? Their careers in business and public life have often been bolstered by their princess designations. However, numerous observers and commentators argue that severing ties with the York family name would be a strategic move. The brand has become profoundly tainted, toxic in the eyes of the public and media alike. Establishing themselves as independent entities, detached from the controversies swirling around their parents, could allow them to rebuild on firmer ground. Would this involve a formal stripping of titles, or something more subtle, akin to what we've seen with Andrew recently, where the honors are pushed into obscurity but not officially revoked? It's possible the princesses might initiate this themselves. Looking ahead to the broader evolution of the monarchy, there's a strong possibility that under King William's future reign, non-working royals will see their titles phased out entirely. The institution may transition toward a more streamlined, European-inspired model. Fewer members, greater emphasis on charitable works and public service, and diminished focus on ceremonial grandeur. This aligns with the implicit pact between the royals and the British people, the expectation that the family exists primarily to serve the nation. Prince Andrew has flagrantly violated this understanding. There's a long-standing divide within the royal lineage between those committed to public duty and those indulging in private indulgences. Figures like Princess Margaret, the Duke of Windsor, and now Andrew have veered toward the latter path. The current leadership seems determined to realign with the service-oriented ethos. As historian Ed Owens has pointed out on similar programs, the royals position themselves as embodiments of national virtues, integrity, dedication, and moral uprightness. Andrew and Ferguson have fallen short of these ideals, disappointing the public and eroding trust. Last week's developments suggest the royal family recognized the necessity of decisive action. To preserve their credibility, they had to distance themselves ruthlessly from the couple, particularly in light of potential legal ramifications. This brings us to Andrew's current predicament and prospects. Reports suggest he could receive around £558,000 as compensation for surrendering the Royal Lodge lease, offset by a massive repair invoice. It's known that Andrew invested considerably, upwards of £8.5 million, in upholding the property during his tenure. His finances remain opaque to outsiders, but he is contractually entitled to recoup some of that expenditure. Essentially, he is being offered a multi-million-pound incentive by King Charles to vacate the premises, given the unbreakable nature of his original lease. One might wonder why, with such resources at his disposal, Andrew allowed the property to fall into disrepair requiring such extensive work. The leverage applied likely extended beyond financial inducements. Pressure was exerted regarding his daughter's futures within the royal fold. Andrew had hoped they would retain their positions, titles, and roles. Threats that their status could be jeopardized if he resisted may have tipped the scales. In the past day or so, further allegations have surfaced concerning Andrew's behavior during his tenure as the UK's special trade envoy from 2001 to 2011. You've described him as lacking moral boundaries, accusing him of exploiting official trips to enrich himself and pursue personal gratifications, including relationships with women. These claims stem from exhaustive research, 4 years of interviews with over 300 individuals, with every assertion meticulously footnoted and often corroborated by multiple sources to satisfy. Legal scrutiny. Specific anecdotes include repeated requests for female companionship on these taxpayer-funded excursions. To clarify, we're discussing young women, including instances involving teenagers as reported by reliable witnesses. Some arrangements involved professionals, prostitutes, in certain cases. One account details 40 such individuals being made available during a visit to Thailand, with similar provisions in locations like Kazakhstan. Beyond that, support staff such as translators and secretaries were sometimes supplied with the implicit understanding that their roles might extend into personal services. These journeys, ostensibly to advance British commercial interests, were frequently hijacked to benefit Andrew's private ventures and those of his associates, such as businessman David Rowland. He even brought his daughters along on occasion, incurring additional security expenses borne by the public purse. This has prompted calls for a full parliamentary inquiry into the envoy period. Relevant documents, which should now reside in the National Archives, remain sealed. Government authorities have employed every available mechanism to block their release via Freedom of Information requests. Greater transparency, who accompanied him, whom he met, and what transpired, could shed critical light on these matters. It's worth emphasizing that Prince Andrew vehemently denies any impropriety, especially regarding serious accusations from individuals like Virginia Giuffre. Nonetheless, these trade mission revelations implicate public funds directly. While Andrew sometimes appended personal vacations to official itineraries, potentially shifting some costs privately, the core travel, security, and diplomatic support were taxpayer subsidized.